Hello and welcome to another edition of Ghetto Watchfinder, and today's drink is Grey Goose. It's a mini Grey Goose because, I don't make these videos to become an alcoholic. I have to say for vodka, this isn't bad. It doesn't burn as much as I'm used to from vodka, so it's not bad. Well, maybe the French do know something about vodka. I don't know. Anyway. So, why Grey Goose? Because we have the Audemars Piguet today, which is kind of the aspirational watch that you want to wear when you really don't give a fuck. Because this thing costs about 3 times as much as a Submariner, and yet it's nothing special. I mean, it's just steel. It's not gold. It doesn't have a perpetual calendar. It's not going to give you blowjobs. It's just a watch, and it's made of steel, and it costs 30 grand. So that's the kind of people that buy this, which is basically just vodka, but, twice as expensive as other vodka, and so you just buy it to look rich in front of your friends, because you don't give a fuck. Anyway, this is a cheap copy, of course, and this is about $75, I think I paid. So first things first, when you look at the face, and I'm not sure if this is going to focus, it probably won't, but come on, please. No. Anyway, there's a tapestry dial, which consists of lots of little squares. Now, on the original, these squares are not actually just squares. They have angled sides. It's like a pyramid, and then someone chops the top off the pyramid, basically. Whereas this, here the squares are kind of like Legos. They have straight sides, come straight out of the dial. So this is an immediate giveaway. I do have to say also the AP logo doesn't sit exactly where it should sit. It should sit a bit to the left, should be flush with the number 12 marker. The movement is a low beat, 6 beats per second movement, which is actually the same as the original. This is a model, or it's a copy of a model 15,400, so this is low beat. The 15,500, that has the high beat. It has a good loom. It really does have strong loom. It's not bad, but you can tell that this is not, if you've ever seen an original, this is not going to fool you. The bracelet is what the AP is really famous for, and this one really does shine and have that pop in the sunlight. But the real one, all these little things are polished. See, all these little edges are polished, and here they're not finished at all. Now, normally you could simply disassemble the bracelet, take all the links out, polish them on your Dremel, but here you can't, because what they do when they assemble these, they put little pins in there, like toothpicks, okay, and they stick out. And they do this to connect the little pieces with the big ones. And then they grind everything down until it sits flush with the bracelet. Then they do spot welding, then they grind it again, then they polish it, and you end up with completely flush sides with no pins sticking out. So you cannot disassemble this bracelet. Even if you could cut it here, I guess, and take the pins out, but then you can't put it back together again. Because the links are not finished quite as well as the original, you also cannot really fold the bracelet very much. Like, this is as much as it goes. On the original, it's much more supple. The clasp is okay. It does have the original markings on it. Not as deeply engraved, not as nicely done as the original, but it is a butterfly clasp, and it's very solid, very good action. I really would not have any difficulty trusting that this will do its job for a number of years. The movement Very nicely decorated. No, it's not actually. It's not decorated at all. And this is a bit of an issue because the rotor, I'm not sure, there you go. So the rotor is very nice. It's oftentimes on these cheap watches you will have the undecorated Asian rotor that comes with the 2813 movement. And then they put a sticker on it. They just print a sticker and then pretend that it's a 3D thingy. But here someone actually made a casting for that rotor, and that's great. It really does look great. Unfortunately, the rest of the movement underneath isn't decorated at all. And so there's this huge contrast between that nice rotor and the shitty movement. If they had at least polished the movement or put some sort of striping on it, this would have been much, much, much better. The other problem with this watch is that it's really, really thick. I mean, this is like Jennifer Lopez's ass. Or, well, Jennifer Lopez. You know who has a nice ass? Donita Dunes. Really. Also, she made much better movies than Jennifer Lopez. But honestly, well, the real watch is much thinner because the movement is thinner. This movement is it's a cheap Chinese-made movement based on an old Japanese design, and that was made to be functional and cheap and not to be, super expensive and skinny. So the movements that AP use are actually about half as thick as this thing, and the actual AP would kind of stop there. So it does have a case back, of course, but everything is just kind of squished together, and then you get that size instead of having that extra thing. This is about, I would say, a good 40% thicker than the real thing. So for the money, $70, and then if you go on Chrono24 in Canadian dollars, you would have to spend about $30,000 to get an original. The brushing is decent. I cannot focus on it because my camera is not decent. Apparently, it hates me today especially. You can always click on the link in the video description and buy my books. And if you buy like 1,000 of them, I'm gonna buy a better camera. Well, the side is polished and the top is brushed, and it's the way it's on the original, but it's just not. It's not as close to the real AP as a Rolex replica is to the Rolex because of the level of finishing. If the Chinese had polished these things, and if they had put a thinner movement in, this would be far superior. Of course, you can get that. If you know where, you can get much better quality replicas, but then you're spending $500 instead of $75. If I could make a suggestion for improvement, I think what they could do is just polish the edges and replace the automatic movement with a thinner manual wind movement. Maybe sell the result for $150, and that would just be better. All right, so that's it for today. Oh, I should tell you a joke, right? What kind of joke can I tell you? Oh, well. Oh, see, this Jewish girl asked me for my number the other day, and I said, I'm really sorry, we use names now. Alright, so I'm definitely going to hell, and you're definitely coming back for my next video. Have a good night.